Fox News alert for you. The Trump White House starting to take shape. Fox News has learned the president-elect has made his picks for Attorney General, CIA Director, and National Security Advisor. This as more appointments could be made known today. This is Outnumbered. I'm Sandra Smith, here today, Harris Faulkner. Meghan McCain, co-host of Fox and Friends. Ainsley Earhart is here today, whose new book, Take Heart, My Child, A Mother's Dream, is in bookstores now. And today's hashtag One Lucky Guy, co-host of The Five, Juan Williams is here. You don't have a children's book out.
No.
You are outnumbered.
I am outnumbered. Am I the Thanksgiving turkey?
No, you're the stuffing.
Oh,
I'm kidding.
I like stuffing.
I do too.
I'm a big fan. I can't wait for Thursday.
I can't wait to get this show started. Good to have you here. All right, well, we begin with President-elect Trump filling 3 key posts in his cabinet and administration. Senator Jeff Sessions accepting the offer from Mr. Trump to be his attorney general. The Alabama Republican was the first senator to endorse him and was a close advisor throughout the campaign. For CIA Director, the president-elect tapping Mike Pompeo, a Kansas congressman. Pompeo is a Tea Party Republican and a fierce critic of President Obama's nuclear deal with Iran. And for National Security Advisor, retired Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. General Flynn, who served as director of the Defense Intelligence Agency under President Obama, has been a frequent critic of the Obama administration and the Pentagon. Doug McKelway live from Trump Tower, where there's an unbelievable amount of activity this week and today on this Friday. Doug, what's the latest there?
Yeah, well, it's hard to keep up with all the comings and goings of this cattle call right now. Having said that, there are a couple of tidbits of new information. We've heard that General Jack Keane has now withdrawn his name as a potential candidate for Secretary of Defense. He's done that apparently for personal reasons. Donald Trump now said to be considering a Marine Corps General James Mattis as Secretary of Defense. Mattis succeeded, as you might recall, David Petraeus as head of U.S. Central Command. He has combat experience and led combat troops in both Iraq and Afghanistan. This is important to Donald Trump, who has vowed that he wants a general to head the Department of Defense, also somebody with managerial experience. There is one caveat to that, however. There is a rule in place which says that once you leave the Pentagon, there has to be a window of 8 years where you are supposed to stay away from offices like this. It is unclear to me at least at this early stage, whether that's a hard and fast rule or there's some amending of that which may take place. We shall see. Also, Trump will be leaving Trump Tower at 2 o'clock this afternoon, we hear, headed to New Jersey to the Trump National Golf Club, I should say, in Bedminster, New Jersey. He'll be staying there for the full weekend. That is where he plans to meet with Mitt Romney. This is a highly unusual meeting, according to a lot of analysts who can't believe that there would be any healing of this adversarial relationship that we saw during the campaign and during the primary season. You'll recall in that famous or infamous speech from that era that Mitt Romney said of Donald Trump, and I quote, "If Trump's plans were ever implemented, the country would sink into a prolonged recession." And that was one of Mitt Romney's more gentle critiques. Trump also scheduled to meet with Michelle Rhee in New Jersey. You might remember that she was a superintendent of the D.C. public schools. She is no conservative, but she became, during that tenure there, a huge opponent of the calcified structure of public school systems across the United States, a huge fan of charter schools and of school choice. Donald Trump likes that very much about her. We also hear that Governor Mike Huckabee will be meeting with Trump at the Trump Tower before he departs for New Jersey today. And lastly, about those picks made today, Mike Flynn for National Security Advisor, Mike Pompeo for CIA, and Jeff Sessions for Attorney General. Get ready on some cold winter day in 2017 for a great theater and a bruising confirmation fight, because Democrats who are very wounded and are out for blood are going to try to make the most of the Sessions and Pompeo hearings, because they have both been accused by Democratic opponents of making racially insensitive remarks way back in the past. So it's going to be confrontational, at least from the Democrats' perspective. Back to you.
All right, thank you. Doug McKelway outside Trump Tower. Juan, what do you think so far? We've got Flynn, Pompeo, Sessions, these big announcements, more possibly to come later today. But so far, your thoughts?
Well, I think we start off with the idea that really the Trump campaign wants a smooth transition. There were charges that things were in disarray earlier. We're seeing now, today especially, this flood of announcements, appointments. And I think that in most cases what you're looking at is avoiding controversy in terms of the confirmation process in the Senate. Flynn, I don't believe, could have been confirmed. I think there's so much controversy about General Flynn. Charges not only, as we heard from Doug, about Islamophobia, but then questions about how he had conducted himself at national security. Was he a good manager? Things that he said. He was even at one point thought of as potentially a vice presidential candidate running with Donald Trump. And then he
made
had
some comments on the trail.
Yeah, comments that he was somewhat pro-choice. And he's a registered Democrat, by the way. So I think, Flynn just is so hot right now in the intelligence community in Washington. I think there are a lot of people shaking their heads, including Colin Powell, former Secretary of State, who in the WikiLeaks situation put out some comments that said he thought that Flynn was unhinged and the like. That's all there.
I remember that.
But if we go and look at Pompeo and Sessions, I think this is interesting. I think Sessions is, just as Doug had said, going to get a lot of questions about some of the racially charged rhetoric jokes that he made in the past. But he's a senator. And you've got a Republican majority, and I think you've got enough Democrats who want to appear to work with the Trump administration that I think Sessions will get through. Pompeo, again, widely respected on the Hill. All these gentlemen are very conservative, by the way, Sandra. There's just no doubt about it. This is a strong conservative group. But I think Pompeo is so respected, a Harvard grad, well-experienced, former military. He'll get through.
Well, they're going to try to make the case that those comments by Sessions were made some, I don't know, 30 years ago. That would be a problem, is what you're saying. But Megan, what do you make so far of the picks?
I think with Jeff Sessions, it's, if you said, Megan, who's the first person Donald Trump will pick, Jeff Sessions was the first person to endorse him, the first sitting senator. He has been on the trail for him, a great surrogate. So Donald Trump rewards loyalty. So I'm not surprised by this pick at all. That being said, some of his comments that were made, 30 years ago, I guess they have something to do with the KKK. This is red meat for the left. I don't think Donald Trump cares. I don't think his campaign cares. But, it is going to be something that will be talked about.
So President Reagan, to be clear, nominated Sessions for a federal judgeship in Alabama. This was 1986. In testimony at the confirmation hearing, Sessions said he thought the KKK was okay. That is what we're referencing.
And again, he, as Juan pointed out, he is a sitting senator. He is a very high profile. I'm not surprised by this pick. General Flynn is more interesting to me just because, again, he had sort of a negative, when he left the Obama administration, it wasn't on good terms. Huge critic of the way they've handled ISIS, huge critic of how President Obama has handled everything foreign policy-wise. He's also sort of the main person that people point to regarding Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump's relationship with Vladimir Putin, meaning he sort of shares the same feelings of trying to unite the United States and Russia together in, what some people who consider a somewhat controversial and maybe not the smartest move,
Ainsley,
but he's the biggest proponent.
You've been covering this all morning, all week, and the entire campaign. It's been awesome to watch you on Fox and Friends in the morning. But, these are people that we've been watching very closely because they have been close to Donald Trump for quite some time.
Well, Sean Spicer, who's communication director for one of the communication, he's on the communication team for Donald Trump. He was on the morning show today, and he was talking about, we've heard the basket of deplorables. Well, this morning he was talking about the bucket of landing teams. That's what they're calling these. And today was national security. Monday's going to be the economy. Maybe that's why he's meeting with Mitt Romney. And then on Wednesday, he said they're going to be choosing someone to run the domestic policy landing team, and that would be Veterans Affairs and Health and Human Services.
Yeah, what's interesting about Mitt Romney, you talk about him with the economy, he actually could wear a lot of different hats because, as we found out yesterday, perhaps the hat of Secretary of State. So I'm guessing, just based on how this is lining up, that there's a home for Mitt Romney in this team.
Fascinating. Fascinating.
I still think the most interesting name to pop up is Senator Ted Cruz out of Texas. I mean, when you start bringing on board not just a rival, but they were bitter rivals.
Lying Ted.
We'll talk about it more in detail later, but what that shows me is that President-elect Trump is looking at not just bringing in those people, and you and I use this word a lot, who are sycophants, who say yes, 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 but looking for somebody who is really practiced at bridging a divide, and that would be somebody who doesn't always say yes to you, and maybe not to everybody else.
Yeah, but here's the problem. There are a lot of people who value loyalty on the Trump team to a fare thee well, and I think there's going to be some blowback if you get someone like Romney, who was so critical, pointing out not only the failures, but the bankruptcies.
He called Donald Trump a phony and a fraud.
That's what I'm trying to say.
I don't believe he voted for him either.
Yeah, really?
No, I'm not entirely sure, but I know that
I was teasing.
He did it, but I don't think he ever endorsed him or voted for him, which makes this even. I actually think he's more fascinating than Ted Cruz, because Ted Cruz ultimately came out and campaigned for him. I would love to be a fly on the wall. I've met Mitt Romney. I know the Romneys pretty well. I mean, he's a very conservative man. It'll be an interesting conversation.
He's smart. He's a multimillionaire. Everyone went to the polls to vote for the economy and for jobs. He might be the perfect fit.
Yeah. We'll see on Monday.
Well said. All right. Well, there could be more surprises coming as President-elect Trump meets with some of his most bitter rivals from the campaign, including who we just talked about, Mitt Romney. But could Mr. Trump actually name these critics to his cabinet? Plus, are President Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama preparing to take the mantle as leaders of the Democratic Party? What this means as Democrats regroup after their 2016 loss.
Well, happy Friday, everybody. We're going to get back to this juicy topic. President-elect Donald Trump starts to form his cabinet. One of his top advisors says he's absolutely open to selecting former rivals. Mr. Trump is set to meet with Mitt Romney. And he's already met with South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley and Senator Ted Cruz. All three battled with President-elect during the campaign, as you well know. But a transition team official says the goal now is to unify the Republican Party. Here's some of that.
He wants to get the best people in there, and I think it's really shown I think that's something that a lot of people would really have a lot of respect for, is the way that he said, hey, these guys may have been political rivals, maybe we butted heads before, but you know what, now we're on the same team, and we got to go and lead the country.
All right, want to update our comments in the first block. A Saturday meeting now with Mitt Romney. And I want to come to you, Ainsley, because you had brought him up as one example. But there are some other examples of these rivals. One is Kelly Ayotte, and your thoughts on that?
Kelly Ayotte supported him. And then when she was asked, she was running in her own election, and she was asked by the media, do you consider Donald Trump a role model for girls, I think they asked. And she said yes. Well, she got so much backlash for that. She pulled it back. Then she said she can't support him. She's not voting for him. She's going to write in Mike Pence. Well, she was neck and neck with her opponent. She lost her election. So it appears that the constituents were furious with her. Many people thought she needed to stick by Trump's side, like many of people in the Republican Party did, and be loyal to him.
You know, one of the things that I heard you say in the lead up to the election, Megan, was it isn't so much whether you stick by, although I would imagine with Donald Trump, because you said he rewards loyalty, that's good. But can you just stick to whatever your guns are? Like, can you keep an opinion?
I'm a huge fan of Kelly Ayotte. I always was. And it is notable to say she only lost by 1,000 votes in New Hampshire. It was very tight. I think, unfortunately, she played the political game the wrong way. That being said, there are rumors she could join his administration. I think that would be a great pick. She knows a lot about foreign policy. I love seeing strong conservative women getting big roles, places it would help with his problems with women. I think it's a good choice.
So Kellyanne Conway, who was campaign manager in the last stretch of Donald Trump's campaign, was taking selfies, and she had a picture with Kelly Ayotte yesterday in her Twitter stream. What are your thoughts about bringing rivals on board, and are there any Democrats who might jump on board that we maybe don't know about yet?
Well, I think Flynn is a Democrat, at least registered.
You mentioned that, yes, although I don't think that that's the first thing that comes to people's minds.
No, not at all.
Politics of recent months and years, but
not at all.
Is he still a Democrat, though?
Yeah. Well, as far as I don't know, but no, that he's always been a Democrat.
We can probably guess.
But
he said it. He's been clear about that. He did vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah, but my feeling about this is you get the best people. Now, as I said to you, I think that there's going to be some people who have been Trump loyalists who will say, well, why not keep the Trump loyal team instead of reaching out and going beyond? I mean, you look at Nikki Haley, governor of South Carolina. Wow. I mean, so it's not just Mitt Romney who had scathing comments about Donald Trump. It was Nikki Haley as well. But, you know, I'm encouraged when I see Nikki Haley, a woman, we're talking about Republican woman coming in, having the face of women as part of it, I think is very important. And I also think that it's great news when you hear about someone like Michelle Rhee, who I think is a Democrat.
I wanted to push in on that too. So she's been working as of late with Kevin Johnson, who's now the mayor of Sacramento, and they've been talking about how charter schools are so important among communities of color.
They're married, by the way.
Oh, are they? Well, maybe that's why they're always together. Genius me. But anyway, they've been talking about how important those schools are, and I'm fascinated by this pick if it actually happens as well.
Well,
go ahead.
Going back to Nikki Haley, I mean, she's an interesting one because in the primary season, she supported 2 of his GOP rivals before ever coming around to Donald Trump. But listen, Donald Trump, going back to his business background and business expertise, I mean, in business, you merge with rivals. You have CEOs jump ship to work for rivals. I mean, this is the way it works. You pick the best people for the job. Donald Trump could actually come out looking very, very good, reaching out to people who didn't always support him.
I'm the first person to say this surprises me. Him reaching out to his rivals and him trying to, give olive branches to people who criticized him during the election. I don't know him. Everything I've ever been told is that he holds grudges and this will lead. I think Omarosa said, we're making a list and we're going to come after you. He's reaching out to every single person who criticized him. But I think it really shows the kind of leadership we can expect. And I have taken great, solace, and it's given me great calm in the past few days knowing that he's surrounding himself with people I trust.
It's a good thing. But he just wants to be a fighter. He wants to win. He keeps saying, we're going to win. Get used to winning. You're going to get sick of winning. He wants to win because, look, he invited Hillary to his wedding. He gave money to her campaign. On the campaign trail, we saw them going back and forth at each other. They seemed to not like each other at all. They were running against each other. Now that he's won, in his latest interview, he said, with Leslie Stahl, he said, she's a good person. I don't want to hurt her. They're good people.
I could not believe
that.
And
even during the debates, they were both asked to say nice things about each other, and he said she's a fighter. That was the one thing that he respected most in her as well.
He respects that in other people because that's what he wants to be.
One last point, I would say, remember that Obama and Clinton said the nastiest things about each other on the campaign trail, and then, of course, she was appointed Secretary of State. I will say, with regard to Donald Trump, it is true that he is reaching out and going beyond now. I just wonder if it's possible that some people will think this is all about ambition, that he wants to create this image and Mitt Romney wants a job.
So can I just ask one quick question? If it benefits America, does it matter?
That's a fair point.
Does it matter?
Yeah,
no.
If it benefits America.
No, if it's
right?
genuine. But
works,
I think you have to have genuine trust between a president and
because remember, Leslie Stahl asked about his brand, and he said more important than anything is this country. So I think that trumps all for him.
Okay, we'll move on. Maybe Hillary Clinton and the Democrats were onto something about James Comey's letter. What President-elect Trump's former campaign manager is saying about the impact of the FBI reopening their investigation into Clinton's emails so close to the election. And Nancy Pelosi has a challenger for her minority leadership post. Why Congressman Tim Ryan says he's running. And you have to hear why Pelosi says she's not to blame for the Democrats' poor showing last week. Stay with us.
President-elect Trump's former campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, crediting FBI Director James Comey with helping Mr. Trump win the election, echoing remarks Hillary Clinton reportedly made on a conference call with donors. Lewandowski says after the FBI renewed its investigation of Clinton's emails with just 11 days left in the race, it was, quote, amazing for the Trump campaign. Watch.
What that did was remind people that there are 2 different rules in Washington, those for the elites and privilege and those for everybody else. And whether Director Comey ever moved forward with that investigation, it allows the campaign to have a little extra spring in their step, to redouble his efforts.
This comes as retiring Senate Minority Leader Harry Reid is now slamming the FBI chief with some very harsh words. Watch.
There's no question in my mind. She would have won this election without any problem if Comey had not been the Republican operative that he is.
Those are strong words, Senator.
But I believe it. Came out against what the Attorney General had recommended, against what common sense dictates. He is the reason she lost the elections. So if you want one reason, that's it. Comey, he can be fat and happy in his office there for 7 more years after having thrown an election to Donald Trump.
My gosh, Harry Reid, do you agree with that? I didn't agree with this sentiment at all because Hillary's numbers were already slipping. I actually think this does a complete disservice to the people Donald Trump reached out to in the Rust Belt, and there's a lot of the thing I think people are forgetting is there's a lot of people that voted for Obama that ended up also switching and voting for Trump. So I think just blaming James Comey is short-sighted.
Well, let's go back to Donald Trump. Donald Trump on 60 Minutes last Sunday, when he was asked about Comey and whether he would keep Comey, said. And he said he wanted to talk to him because he wanted to hear what Comey had to say about why he did what he did. Now, Megan, what that said to me was quite intriguing because I didn't know Donald Trump had any concerns about Comey, and hearing from Corey Lewandowski, you would think, well, maybe, in fact, he's grateful for what Comey did. But instead, Trump says, I want to talk to him. I don't know what this guy was up to. And it suggests to me that in the political class right now, there is great concern about Jim Comey. I think it's long-lasting. Your point about, well, Hillary's numbers were slipping, I think when we look at the exit polls, what we see is that people who made a late decision in that race almost all went to Donald Trump. And the question is, why did we see that's what defeated the polls? The polls didn't. I thought it might split. You might get some for Gary Johnson, Jill Stein. Almost all of them went to Donald Trump. And I think there was a great sense that, is she going to be indicted as president? Would she be impeached as president? And of course, it picked the scab totally off the trustworthiness question, which was a constant weight for Hillary Clinton.
Yeah. I think when you hit the nail on the head, though, too, and I think, Ainsley, you said it as well, Donald Trump wants people who know how to do their jobs and to win. And so if you have somebody in your camp who goes back and forth, potentially can knife you. And that's not literally.
No, but I heard what you said.
But politically, yeah. And so for Hillary Clinton and others to have pointed specifically to James Comey's timing of that investigation part deux, as I call it, do you want somebody in your camp who potentially could hurt you? Now, he only really has the ability, as I understand it, to accept a resignation. This is not an appointment by the president. But it's interesting that he's even considering it.
Y'all, she lost this election on her own. She shouldn't have even been doing this. If she had not had a private server, this wouldn't even be an issue.
But
that's the bottom line.
I understand what you're saying, Nancy, but you understand that the FBI director totally broke with all precedent.
Why doesn't this go back with what is the problem with the Democratic Party right now? When you look at the comments by Harry Reid, to Ainsley's point, does he not get it? Does he not get why Hillary Clinton actually won this race, and that there's one person lost this race, and there's one person to blame for that, and that's Jim Comey?
Right.
I mean, that's time to take a look within.
They're not taking any self-reflection or culpability for your role in the loss. And yes, I'm not saying James Comey was a great asset, it didn't help, but to completely place all the blame on him, not only do I think is short-sighted, but will hurt Democratic leaders going forward. If you don't look at why you lost, so many people in the West
excuse me, I thought this was Corey Lewandowski who said
I disagree with Corey Lewandowski.
Okay, I'm just saying,
we all disagree
you're hearing
with
this from Republicans.
He's not doing his candidate a favor by saying that that's why Donald Trump won the race, but I think we need to move on. Oh, it's me, Nancy Pelosi. She's got a challenger. Did you hear? Ohio Congressman Tim Ryan announcing he's running against the California Democrat for minority leader. Here's why Ryan said he threw his hat into the ring.
We're not winning, and it's time for a change. I mean, we got shellacked Tuesday, but we go back to 2010, we lost. 2012, we didn't win enough seats.
How many House races have you lost since Barack Obama was in office?
68 since 2010. Have the smallest majority since 1929 in our caucus. And if you take state and federal officials, Democratic officials, we have the smallest number since Reconstruction.
There, Congressman Ryan also says Democrats need a leader who can speak to the kind of Rust Belt constituents that he represents in Ohio. Meantime, Minority Leader Pelosi says she has the support of 2/3 of her caucus, and that any disappointment House Dems fared at the polls last week is not her fault. Listen.
We cannot be taking the full responsibility for what happened in the election. We have to do our after-action review thoroughly and see what we could have done differently. But a lot of it was beyond our control.
All right, so Congressman Ryan, though, making the point, Juan, we've got some problems and we need to deal with them now.
Without a doubt, and I think Tim Ryan's also just an estimable guy. You point out he's a Rust Belt congressman. I think he has also said he can go south and talk to people and say, you know what, this is what the Democratic Party stands for. We have populist instincts. We are concerned about jobs. So he has a real platform. The problem, Pelosi is the biggest fundraiser coming out of California. She has raised hundreds of millions of dollars for Democrats since, I think it's 2002. And it's hard to give up on that. And so a lot of people are in debt to Nancy Pelosi. One last point on this. Nancy Pelosi's in her 70s. You think about, you know, some of the people who are on her House leadership team, and they're also an older generation. And I think people like Tim Ryan in his 40s, and you think about some of the base of the Democratic Party at this point, I think it was 55+% of people under 34 voted for Hillary Clinton. They want activist, energetic people to take the fight in.
Bernie Sanders supporters want to burn this thing to the ground.
Well,
and there is no,
because Bernie's older than all
I want
of
to
them.
know, other than fundraising, which I would counter the argument with, look where that money got you. What does she have to offer? I don't understand the reasoning for keeping her. She's part of the problem. She's part of the reason why you guys have this historic loss. And I think keeping the same person in place, at least symbolically, and I've talked to a lot of millennial Democrats, they are so mad at the Democratic Party right now. I have a friend who's a lifelong Democrat threatening to become an independent, says you have 1 year to clean this up, specifically points to Nancy Pelosi. I mean, these people are, whether you like it or not, when you're in this leadership position, you have to take some of the blame.
It's the Brexit thing. I mean, we saw it in the UK. We saw it in the Republican Party. It looks like the Democratic Party is following suit. He also said in that interview, or in another network interview, he said it's the definition of insanity to continue to vote for Nancy Pelosi, because the definition of insanity is do the same thing over and over and keep getting the same results.
Well, it's time for your party to find some new stars, and you're not going to do that with the people at the helm who hold the purse strings for the money, for the policy, so on and so forth. How do we know that? Sure, there was a lot of criticism for Republicans having 17 candidates. You had 2. Both of them were north of 65, so you want to talk about age. But it really comes down to ideas. You had one that was an elite, wealthy woman, couldn't even get her speeches, because we don't know what she said to some people, apparently special people on Wall Street. And then you had a guy who led a movement, and he was silenced inside the party.
Juan, how would you describe the state of your party right now?
I think the party is in disarray and looking for leadership. So we hear conversations about, like in the Senate, can Chuck Schumer, because of the ties to Wall Street, he's a senator from New York, for those of you who don't know, can he really represent this energetic, activist, populist base that was so attracted to Bernie Sanders? But it's not that Sanders would be the leader, but you need people like Elizabeth Warren. She's another one.
She's been very active here of late.
Very active.
On her own behalf.
Or do you get someone like Michelle Obama?
But you guys have got to start reaching out to young people too, though. I mean, young Democrats are angry that they wanted Bernie in huge numbers, and they feel very betrayed by the DNC.
About 10% of Sanders supporters voted for Trump.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
That's really interesting to me.
All right, the campaign is over, but President-elect Trump is planning to hit the road again in a victory tour of states he won in the election. Is this a good way to thank his voters, or could the time and money be put to better use? We will debate that next.
He scored a stunning victory, as you know, on election night. And it looks like the celebration is not quite over yet. President-elect Donald Trump is planning a victory tour across several states, which helped him beat Hillary Clinton. A campaign aide says it will happen in the next couple of weeks after Thanksgiving. As for where, you'll see it pop up. He says, quote, obviously to the states we won and the swing states we flipped over. That will likely include Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, part of Mrs. Clinton's blue wall, which failed to hold for her, as well as some traditionally red states. What do you think about a big party, Ainsley?
He loves this. He loves his rallies. And I think the campaign, I think he could breathe after that last debate. Because debating is not necessarily his, he did great in that last debate, in the second debate. So I think he could breathe then and enjoy the rallies. He loves, who wouldn't love to jump up on stage and just everyone in the crowd loves you?
That's how we start Outnumbered. Every day in the green room.
Kellyanne Conway said this tour, she said it is called, and I love this name, Thank You America Tour. Isn't that sweet?
What do you do about the 60 or so million who didn't vote for him?
Well, I think he's going to rural areas and areas that did vote for him. So if he's going to Pennsylvania,
but they'll see it on TV. They'll know that they're left out.
I don't think he's going to Philly. I don't think he's going to Michigan, and he's not going to Detroit. I don't think he's going to the big cities, which are they held, in fact, if we're talking about the blue wall. The question in my mind, is this spiking the football? You know how in football they say, act like you've been there before if you score a touchdown?
Oh, Juan.
No, that's the question. Is it really an act in which he's saying, I won and my supporters come celebrate? Or
he was
is
just elected by the people and he's going to go see the people. You can make the argument.
I love that. And what I was saying is in response to what Harris said, is he in fact now saying, I want to bring America together? I'm the American president.
And
I
he
am
would
the
need to go to
president of
those
all the
areas where he
people,
didn't win.
Which is what he said, by the way, the night that he won. Terrific speech. And he said, I want to unify, not just Republicans, I want to unify Americans.
And do you see him going to some of those places? Do you think he needs to go to those places where he didn't have victory?
So I know Trump supporters aren't going to like this, but I actually think this is a bad move. It is very easy to get addicted to rallies and the screaming and the fame and people adoring you, but I think he needs to take this very seriously, which everything so far shows that he is. Go into office, continue expanding his cabinet. I think if this is a criticism Republicans lauded against President Obama, because he wanted to do tours like this, and Republicans had a big problem with it.
Point.
And I don't know, I would wait a little longer into his administration.
But what about the Thank You America tour? Just to say thank you to the people who
I just think he
chance.
should focus on getting his White House ready. I get it. I'm sure it helps his morale. I'm sure it helps, the people around him. I'm sure it gets him excited to be president, but I still think that he should just focus on
Believe me, if you've been out in front of the White House lately, you see that they've already constructed the parade barricades and the stands. There's going to be a big celebration.
Well, inauguration is a celebration.
That's what
let's not lose sight of the fact that there is that point where you get to thank America. But I think, based on just bipartisan language about things like the premiums with Obamacare, there are a lot of ways he could show that he loves America.
He could also
fix that.
The flip side of that is people could criticize him if he didn't do this, because he did rally after rally after rally, 4 states in one day at the last week. So if he just said, I'm going to take a break, I'm going to sleep, then people might accuse him of being Hillary.
I'm not saying that his supporters are going to love this. I mean, his base of supporters, this is going to be great. Of course, you're going to want to go out and
what
see
about the 60
President
million
Donald
others?
Trump. But the problem is the independents, the people who didn't vote for him. If I were him, I would.
What if his message is different, though? What if his message is, hey, come to the rally, get to know me, give me a chance?
Listen, every experiment he's done has worked so far. So far be it for me. It's just, if I were advising him, I would say just hold off first 100 days.
I know we need to leave it there, but I think it's part of the transparency that he promised when he was campaigning to the American people, and to keep putting himself out there.
All right, we'll move on. As President Obama gets ready to turn over his keys to the White House, does it work like that? Don't they have a code or something? Anyway, he says he wants to help mold the next Michelle and Barack Obama. Where are those two people? But is that what Democrats really want, considering some see the election as a repudiation of the current president?
As President Obama gets ready to turn over his keys to the White House, he tells the New Yorker magazine his next mission will include rebuilding the DNC, counseling the next generation of leadership, and molding the next Barack and Michelle Obama. The president saying, quote, I think both Michelle and I are interested in creating platforms that train, empower, network, boost the next generation of leadership. What we'll be most interested in is programming that helps the next Michelle Obama or the next Barack Obama, who right now is sitting out there and has no idea how to make their ideals live, isn't quite sure what to do to give them resources and ways to think about social change. So I have this bet that President Obama is going to be the complete and total opposite of George W. Bush, that he's going to be as active and vocal and on TV as much as possible during Trump's presidency.
Well, this also made me kind of question whether or not Michelle Obama might be looking at politics, because otherwise, how could you best prepare for your role? Like, how many first ladies do we think we have out there? Like, people running for president is a different category than their spouses, right? So it made me think, well, what do they mean when they say they want to prepare the next Michelle Obama in particular?
And what if she ran for president one day? Would they be the next Clintons, that he was the president, then she was the president?
Yeah, I don't know
if
if the nation necessarily likes dynasties. We'd have to ask the Bushes about that, too.
All right, Juan.
Yeah, in particular.
What do you think, Juan?
Well, to me, what they're talking about is sincere and a sincere need. I think on this couch today, you guys have pointed out, the bench on the Democratic side looks threadbare by comparison to the 17.
We pointed that out, or did you agree and point it out?
I agree. But I would say to you, if you look at people who are right now in the Congress, I'm thinking the fight right now going on over who will chair the Democratic National Committee. And you get people like Keith Ellis and Howard Dean saying, well, that's, I'm not sure how far we're pushing. But then you start looking around and you come across people like Julian Castro, the secretary, or you think about people like Cory Booker, or you think about what's going on with, Andrew Cuomo, the governor here in New York. And now you start to see, well, maybe there are Democrats who need a national profile, and if they get some support from the likes of a Barack Obama, who, by the way, I think his rating is over 55% approval at this juncture, which is
Pretty
astounding.
impressive.
But also among Democrats, he's up in like the 80% approval.
You know, I wish her well. I know some people on the campaign, and I know that it feels like death to them. You don't wish that on anyone. There's got to be a winner. There's got to be a loser. But they're all out of work now, so my heart does go out to them because she worked so hard on it. I'm not saying that I believe in her policies, but you do feel for them because she worked her tail off.
I have another theory. I mean, there's been word that Chelsea Clinton might run for some forum in Congress.
No way.
I
tried to get an interview with her.
Here's my theory. They don't want to encourage Hillary Clinton too much because she actually may come back again and take another bite at the apple. I mean, that's reality because she could if she wanted to.
They were floating that 2 days after their loss, too, which I came on this couch and said just how utterly bizarre and tone deaf I thought it was. To Ainsley's point, she won't even give an interview. She didn't give interviews with anyone who would ask her a real question during the campaign. I don't know how you run for Congress doing that.
You'd probably know better than anyone because you all, the daughters of...
Yeah, and I did real interviews.
Yeah.
And I wasn't scared. And again, she's 36 or 37, mother of two. If you want to run for Congress, the media is not going to go easy on her.
So as Democrats do take this look within and start to organize for the next 4 years, what's the Democrats going to be looking for? What are they going to be looking for in leadership other than the Clintons and the Obamas?
Well, you know, I talked to you earlier about the idea that the base of the party is pretty far left and young. They're young people. Clearly those are the ones who gave their support to Hillary Clinton in this last election. But I would go beyond that. I mean, you stop and think about who are the influencers in the Democratic Party. People love Joe Biden. They love Barack Obama, among the Democrats I'm speaking. And the question is, who do they see as worthy of handing the baton to?
All right, we got to move on. Who doesn't love a new baby? Well, Ainsley has a little girl, and to show all of that love, she wrote a new book for her. Aww. It's the cutest thing ever and the best way for you to start your weekend. The sweet story next.
Aww. And a new author, Ainsley Earhart's children's book is now on sale. It is entitled Take Heart, My Child, and it is a personal message to her little one that you just saw, and to children and adults everywhere. I love it. I read it to my girls.
You did.
The messages of empowerment, I'm curious because I needed them too.
Yeah.
Why do you think this is so needed right now?
I think after the election and talking about ISIS, I read it the other day and I just thought, I need to hear this. I need to be reminded just to take heart and to take a step back and realize everything's going to be okay. And when I was meeting with them, we were trying to come up with a title. I said, there's a scripture that I think about when we talk about, there she is, how crazy this world has, all the things that could bother us. So there's a scripture that comes to mind. Take heart, I have overcome the world. I said that on the 5 when I was listening with you. And the publisher said, that's it. That's the title of your book. So I think it's doing well because it's right after the election. Timing was perfect. Our country just needs to hear bonding.
And in time for the holidays. It's a great gift.
It's a good gift. Thank you.
It's aspirational too. I mean, whether you're a parent or not, right?
Yeah.
I think I'm going to read to you my favorite passage because I'm a big Dr. Seuss fan. I love all the places we go. So I'm always looking for little nuggets to tell my kids for when things don't work out. So I love this tender part of your book. Ainsley writes, but if you get lost in the ocean's vast tides, take heart, my child, I'll be by your side. And then there's a big ocean here, which we all know we can get lost in.
Yes.
I love it.
The illustrations are beautiful.
Jamie Kim did an amazing job. This is her first book. She's from North Carolina, and we had contacted some other illustrators. This just shows you how everything works out perfectly. We contacted a few illustrators. They couldn't do it. They had other projects going on. And then her agent sent in work, her first time ever that the publisher had ever seen her work. We were like, wow, this is great. We sent the manuscript. She did the pictures to match the manuscript, and we got them back, and they are amazing. And 10% of everything we make goes to Folds of Honor.
Well, I was just going to mention that because Folds of Honor, Folds of Honor is for children of fallen soldiers.
Yes.
So I was thinking, boy, that is so sweet. I just think, first of all, as a granddad, I think it's a great Christmas gift. I really do. So I think for kids, for young people, it's not so much that I think the kids can read, the ones who are most benefit from it. I think it's just so great for bedtime reading for granddad to be sitting there and say, hey, you know what?
Wow, that's so sweet.
Full, like a little one. from a deer, which was your favorite part of the book.
It is. It's beautiful. Oh, I read it to my 3-year-old.
I know. What poor
and
thing.
she did not move. She was captivated. Loved it.
Yeah.
That's so great. Well, it's AinsleyEarhartBooks.com. You can buy it there. It's out of stock on a few sites, but they've reordered, so they're coming back. You'll get your books the first few weeks of Christmas. Of December.
Great to have you both.
Thanks,
Have a great weekend happening
Thanks,
now.
y'all. I appreciate the support.